Hey again. In this section, I want to briefly clean up our blog that we've set up a little bit. And what I would like to talk about is separating templates into more than one file, as well as adding some sort of CSS and JavaScript framework to our site to make it look a little bit nicer. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to uh, install the Bootstrap framework into our blog uh, system. So what I'm going to do for starters is to open up a new tab in my web browser and go to do a Google search for Bootstrap. And that'll bring up the Bootstrap CSS, HTML, and JavaScript framework. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to install this framework on our blog so that we can so that it can look a little bit nicer. So what I'm going to do is go to the Get Started page and then scroll down to the Content Delivery Network section, or the CDN section. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the CSS and the themed CSS, as well as the JavaScript. So I'm just going to copy these two links here, go back to our home.html, paste in the, actually maybe better to format our HTML a little bit. So fortunately in Sublime Text there is a way by which you can generate HTML tags. We're not going to get into that now, but just to add some sort of proper HTML formatting uh, to our new website. So let me put this just above the start of the body tag, and then I'm going to copy the rest of my content to within the body tag. I just want to format this just a little bit, and then I'm going to go back into the Bootstrap website, and I'm going to grab the JavaScript section. So what you'll notice here is that I'm loading my CSS at the beginning of the site, and I'm loading my JavaScript at the end of the site. This is best practice for HTML and CSS because CSS needs to be set before anything is declared, and it's best to run JavaScript at the end of your file so that if your JavaScript is trying to target any HTML elements, it makes sure that they already exist before it tries to find them, because it may throw an error saying this particular element does not exist and we're trying to target it, because it is declared after the JavaScript. And that's why we put the JavaScript right at the bottom of our page. Cool. So let's go back to our site. We shouldn't really see, we don't need Bootstrap anymore. We shouldn't really see too much changing here. So if you will remember from our previous lecture, we need to pass username in, and you'll see that a bit of formatting has already taken place here. This is great. So we just have a new font and it just looks a little bit cleaner. Now, if we had to click on Hello World, you would now see that our formatting goes back to the default formatting, that the font's changed, it doesn't look as slick. So what we would need to do here to get this to work is you would need to copy all of this into our single.html file. Now, this is really not practical because what that really means is that we will have to copy and paste everything in this file into every single other file as well, and then just swap out the content section. Now, this really defeats the point of a content management system, as what we're trying to do is to try create as little static elements or as little static stuff on our site as possible, and just keep it all dynamic if we can. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to separate this file into separate files, and then I'm going to apply a partial template to well, that separate file will be a partial template, and then I'll apply that partial template to each of my other larger templates, and then we should be able to avoid creating redundant code. So what I'm going to do is inside of my templates folder, I'm going to create a new folder and not folder, new folder called partials. I hope I've spelled that correctly. And within partials, I'm going to create a file called header.html. Now, what you'll notice is if you've ever worked with themes in WordPress, that we are following a very similar structure here, because WordPress by default has a header.php file within the theme, as well as a footer.php file. So we are going to create a header.html file and a footer.html file. And then what we can do, which is really great, is we can just grab the top section all the way up to the opening of the body tag and just cut that and put that into our header.html file, and then go back to our home.html and cut the bottom section and paste that into our footer.html file. So now we have access to these two files. That's great. And ideally what we want to do is we want to somehow include header.html in here, header.html, and footer.html in here. And then the same thing will go for this. We will want header.html here and then footer at the bottom. So the way that we do that is we use another special template function that Django has built in called the include function. And what we will do is, because we are now using functional code and not echoing out something like we've discussed in the past, we are going to start with our curly braces with the percentage signs in the middle and then use the include keyword. Now, this is basically a function within the syntax of Django's templating language, and this is followed by a parameter, and the parameter will be the name of the template that we want to pull in, with the templates folder being the root of this. So what we will need to do is we will need to call the partials path and then the name of the file, which is header.html. Lovely, and we can save this. And then what we would need to do now is just replicate that, except have it pull in footer.html in the footer section. So include partials and then footer.html. Now what's really great about this is that we can copy this and paste it into our single.html file, and copy the footer and paste that into our single.html file. Great. Let's refresh the front page, the front end of our site, and see what happens. Fantastic. You'll see that we still have our formatting retained here. And if we click on the post, you'll see that this formatting is retained throughout. So this is really great and something very useful about the way that Django works.